Locutors of Trek. On screen.
Hello, and welcome to Locutors of Trek, the Trekle Trunk.
Hello, welcome.
Klingons do not play with toys, but we do. And this is the show where we do that. We'll read comics, we'll play games with my Star Trek hero clicks here behind me, and maybe play with some of the toys. God, it's hard to point to the side you want.
He's in the mirror universe now.
Perhaps play and review some of these toys as well as we go. We are your hosts, plain simple Tailors, a.k.a. Mr. Trekup and Lieutenant
Casey Finnegan.
Yes,
indeed.
You may, well, certainly Canadian listeners may notice the homage to a certain Mr. Dressup.
That's right.
The title of the show. Yes, indeed. Yeah, a hero to the youth of Canada.
Oh yeah,
for sure. So today, not night. I'm used to doing these at night. We're here to review a few comic books here. Dave has them in hand there.
I do.
He'll carry us through the plots a bit, and we'll comment with what we think and other comments that we often make as locutors.
Right on. So these are really recent issues. Star Trek number 400. Beautiful, beautiful cover art.
Very good. Yeah, that's the variant B cover. It came with a few different covers, but that one had Cisco on it, so that's the one I picked.
Like the cover art's by now. Who is the cover art by here? Let's say. It must. I haven't seen it.
Well, this one's an anthology. It has 6 stories in it.
And they
spanning the Star Trek universe and timeline.
Yeah, and they're a series of meditations in some ways on what core pieces of Star Trek are, or maybe some core relationships, glimpses of things that we haven't seen, plus some just fun stories just for fun in there. Yeah.
Some of them are a page long, some of them a few pages long. But some of them were very cool and very exciting to me. And
I really like some of them. I mean, you probably already know my favorite story in here because
it's probably mine as well.
Quite possibly, yes. So but we
published by IDW, as all Star Trek comics are right now.
Indeed. First story, called Captain's Log, is written by Chris Eliopoulos, art by Luke Sparrow, colors by DC Alonso. Let me just show you the opening page there. It's beautiful.
Very cool. A bit of Captain's Log there.
Yeah, so it's called
by perhaps a certain Commander or Captain Kirk. Perhaps.
It's beautiful, right? It really opens the whole book up as this meditation on what's happening. This is as their time in the Enterprise is coming to a close, and it asks a great question. Ultimately, what is it?
One second.
A good captain.
1 second there. Spoiler alert, everybody. If you haven't read these comics yet and you don't want to be spoiled, go read them and then come back.
That's probably
otherwise enjoy the summer.
Well, we're going to give away certain things as we talk about the meat of the story. Like that's just inevitable. So we end up with this set of questions about what makes a good captain. Is it compassion? Is it sacrifice? Is it heroism? Is it commitment?
Is it all of those things?
Indeed. Is it, in fact, Spock's core value of infinite diversity and infinite combinations? All of these possibilities are bandied about, and we see wonderful references to various episodes like the Tholian Web.
Very cool.
Or where's another?
I do like the art in this story.
Oh yeah, here we go. Good old bit of Gorn punching, then some wonderful villains with Khan there finishing off the list,
and a Romulan commander.
Indeed. What?
What?
Romulan Commander.
Romulan Commander, another toy from the Trekle trunk.
Commander.
Yeah.
That is.
We'll do a review on those.
Time of my
new
life, I've been
Amigos.
seriously tempted to just break into a box right away.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
The story ultimately asks the question, maybe a good captain is all about having the right people around you and letting them do their best. Or maybe in the end, it's about letting go.
Did you sense the meta text or subtext in this story that I seem to?
Well, I'm not sure. What are you detecting there?
If that's the story, I think it is, because I read these yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically referring or like speaking of the current kind of dichotomy in the fandom of Star Trek, like the people who were rebelling against it, Star Trek being told in different ways, and it seems to be commenting a lot on that. If you keep that in your head and then read that story, it's like, wait a minute, what are you talking about? Are you talking about being a captain, or are you talking about being a Star Trek fan?
I think it's a lovely way to read that. Yeah, absolutely. Because in some ways, we're all captain of our own ship somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
I am the pilot of my own soul, says the opening episode of Discovery, right?
Yet we all have that pesky admiral giving us shit. We're not admirals of our own ship. No, sir.
Sure. We're just captains. But
some of us just get
I love that idea. And it's also a beautiful moment. I mean, the moment they pick essentially is the moment between Star Trek V and Star Trek VI, I think, right? Where Sulu is about to become captain of the Excelsior. Because that's...
Or actually is, right? Because in the last scene, he's there with that same ops officer or pilot that he has in Undiscovered Country.
That's right. So we see this sort of moment where he's starting his tour. It looks like
Lujor or something like that. They say his name.
Something like that.
Something like Lujor. But
and it's a lovely moment because it turns out that it's actually been Sulu talking the whole time, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. The first image they show you is Kirk, and you think he's giving the captain's log, and then at the very last panel they show you that it's actually Sulu. I thought that was a really good story because the meta text, everything.
Also, I don't know if you do this, but when I'm reading voiceover material like that, or when I'm reading the characters' dialogues, I'm hearing their voice or some facsimile of their voice in my head, right? The moment
I do
from William Shatner, to George Takei, was like, oh wow! I would love to see that.
I don't know. Oh my!
Right? Oh my! Exactly.
That's good. I will say I do that, but I find it difficult to stay in there. Like I slip in and out of hearing the voices in their head. But what I will say, a bit of a spoiler for later, is in Lower Decks #1, I did not have that problem. The voices were just screaming themselves at me. But anyway, we'll talk about that one here momentarily.
But I thought it was an interesting, the meta text I thought you were pointing to was actually all those oft-touted stories about the rift between Shatner and Takei as well, right?
Oh,
in a certain sense, there's a handoff going on there that was interesting too, right? But I think your subtext is probably the more foregrounded one, as subtexts go. If I can mix this metaphor any further.
It was a thick and dense story. Then we got a lot out of it for 6 pages or whatever.
Yeah. Oh no, I think it's a great one.
What's next?
Okay, I'm just gonna put this piece of art up. You all can know and love this design.
Oh my! So is this your favorite story in the book?
This is my favorite story. This is my favorite panel. In the entire thing, right here.
Oh,
you know what?
Just the Rutledge,
the USS Rutledge, NCC 57255, a New Orleans class starship,
captained by the great.
Indeed.
Maxwell.
How the great do fall later. But this is
the great do fall. Yeah.
This is actually the moment before the beginning of his fall.
Yeah.
Right? We're doing a lot of moment befores here.
Yeah, and what an important one. I think there's another story that does that, where they pick a
Mhm.
really good moment in Star Trek lore that we haven't seen, but people would have wondered about.
Yes.
And this is certainly one of them. And one, like, if we ever do a top 5 on Locutors about, well, maybe we have, but we do another one on scenes mentioned but we haven't seen. I guess we've done things sort of like that, but not
Oh yeah.
entirely.
But the Massacre of Setlik 3.
That one would have been one. Like,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, honestly, a lot of the stories in this would work great if they wanted to decenter the Star Trek shorts from just doing the Discovery style of
Oh,
stories.
now that is a good idea. It's harder, I
that would
guess,
be
with the
incredible.
actors aging and things.
Oh, for sure. This is more like a dream casting or a fantasy football team. But
Or you could animate them. Like, you could
Yeah.
do animated Deep Space Nine shorts. I'd be all for that.
oh, that's amazing. Yeah, yeah.
Especially with Lower Decks breaking, that wall down, because it's canon. Lower Decks is part of the universe we know and love. And
I mean, I think that would be incredible.
yeah.
Yeah.
But why don't you take us into the
So-
Battle of Setlik here?
We open in orbit of Setlik 3, which, as Miles O'Brien's personal log, Petty Officer Miles O'Brien at this point, points out, is it's been a nice break from the war. The Cardassians are a sly yet brutal enemy. Border skirmishes are at an all-time high. But this outpost is still quite close to the Federation Cardassian border. All is quiet. But
Mhm.
as we see Miles working on a panel, you see somebody down here who is
Cloaked fellow.
clearly
In a well-tailored cloak, I might add.
indeed a well-tailored cloak, it looks like.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
obviously, beautifully, I like this moment of continuity here where he's sporting the original style of uniform we see Cardassians showing up in the series.
The headgear. Yeah.
Terrible headgear.
Like that Gul Moset had, wasn't it Moset?
Yeah, Gul Moset, that's right. So this fellow says, of course, I seem to have lost my way. Could you point me to the Cardassian side of the border? And Miles, who's been working a little bit of engineering, but mostly doing soldiering for the last while, brings him into the brig. He won't answer questions, so he brings Maxwell in to see what can be done.
And what we see in that scene too, which is interesting, is that Maxwell wasn't aware of O'Brien even at that point.
No, this is really a first moment where they're introduced here, and he gets to see a little bit of who O'Brien is.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a very different picture than most of us get of O'Brien at first, right? Maybe it's our Farpoint picture of O'Brien before we know him as an engineer. But yeah, Maxwell's not sure that he's that good at engineering at first.
No, and Miles does push back on that. He's just like, no, actually, usually I am.
This is really, I just haven't done this in a long time. It's been, a war.
Yeah.
So the Rutledge has been ordered back to the front because things intensifying.
And it is mentioned that Maxwell's family is down on the planet.
That's right. They're part of the outpost. He says it must be nice to have a family. It must be good for Maxwell to be close to his at the moment now.
Nice little nod there to O'Brien's future family.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And, of course, the future catastrophe of the Pegasus, which is all centered on, in some sense, the trauma of the loss of his family and Setlik 3 as a moment of failure on the part of the whole Federation strategically,
Yeah.
So they wonder about what the guy was trying to send a signal about. Was he trying to breach our security shields? Was he trying to escape with a shuttle pod or something like that? They're not sure. So they try and talk to him. And
we have another character there who's been mentioned in Star Trek before.
Oh, now where are we here?
The co-worker of O'Brien there.
Oh, here, Caden.
Yeah, that's Stompy.
This is Stompy right here.
Stompy! Good lad. Cool as a mountain lake.
The minstrel boy
The war is gone. Well, maybe we'll end the show with that song. We'll see.
Anyway, so he and Stompy are standing there, and they start to talk to this Cardassian who, very oddly, Hi,
Hey,
Sam.
Sam.
Who
Thanks
very
for joining us,
obviously
man.
tell them that what they really want to do is take him off to a cushy prison, and he'll tell them more because he really wants to get off this planet.
Yep.
They don't necessarily pick up on this, but they do say they're listening.
Mm-hmm.
And so we switch moments in time. My dog is growling at me. He's trained me to open the door with this growl. One moment here. I'll
Attaboy,
just back
Apollo.
up. No, it's we're a difficult species to train adequately. But I know it's a curtain, but go on around. There you go.
Yes, it's
Yeah, I need
my
to be
lack
growled
of
at.
training.
Curtains explain to him. We all have
My
our
lack of
problems.
training is why this little one is biting me.
I'm amazing. So, right, and now he begins to say, "I belong to a certain order," and then
Yeah.
something horrific happens.
Mm-hmm.
He is disrupted from the inside out.
Now I wonder, Miles in that episode, the Pegasus, I believe it was, or it might have.
Mm-hmm.
It might have been in a Deep Space Nine episode where he mentions it, but he mentions how he disintegrated a guy. In that, like,
Yeah.
changed his whole, view of himself and of war and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think this is it? Because they don't know how he was disintegrated. They're just like, but Miles is the one standing there. Do you think he blames himself for that?
It may be. As I recall, I think in that moment, that was after they brought the shuttle down or whatever it was,
Okay.
or after the attack, and he may have shot a guy with a
Mm.
phaser and watched him vaporize.
Mhm.
But this moment certainly can't be much better than that, right? This is a prisoner who's the captain's left under his charge, and all of a sudden he just evaporates from the inside out in this greenish glow, which, as we know in Star Trek, generally means disruptor energy or disruptor fire. And so then we find another figure standing on a hill wearing a
Yeah.
curiously well tailored cloak.
Very well tailored cloak. It's curious, these cloaks.
Yeah. And he'll be
I mean, simply tailored.
simply.
But well
Yeah.
tailored.
And on the next page, we are rewarded with information as to who we are dealing with. We are dealing with Elam Garrick and Enabran Tain right here.
Indeed, we are.
Although another character named Tain has met an unfortunate end. That's our fellow in Cell. I was confused by that as a piece of the script originally. I thought maybe they should have chosen a different Cardassian name because I thought, is he saying that Enabran Tain died there, or Enabran had another relative that he sent to his death? Or because Tain is, yeah.
Or was that supposed to be Tain? And he swapped himself out, and Garrick is aware of this, so he was telling a joke. He's like, "Yep, Tain died like he was supposed to." Like,
oh my gosh, yes, that. Also, I hadn't even thought of that, but that is definitely.
well, you got to start thinking like 3 steps removed when you're dealing with the Obsidian Order.
Yeah, that's true. Like one of those lizards in the desert.
What likely isn't the answer? That's the answer.
That's exactly it. So their actual message, the message was looking at shipping manifests to see whether the Federation were moving weapons into that area.
Yeah.
Tain says there's no proof, but Tain responds, well, in any case, the intelligence is irrelevant. The Obsidian Order will confirm Central Command's suspicions.
Yeah.
So the attack's been decided upon.
But that's interesting that they're looking for Federation moving weapons into their territory, because that's exactly what Maxwell says the Cardassians are doing.
Yes. That's precise. That
Anybody uses as an excuse to kill them.
Yeah, and it's a wonderful piece of mirroring. I love that way that Star Trek tells stories. And given the fact that this is an issue 400, I like that they're leaning on that in the fact that there's so much material that they can draw on around these things, that they can make these allusions and implications to all sorts of stuff to bring it in as this metatextual or intertextual level. Yeah, it's awesome.
And it
also I love
because
the
it's
bridge
such
of
a
the
well
ship looks like it's not, they're obviously not on Terek Nor at this point. They're on
base or something, or a base. Yeah. But yeah, really good.
Yeah.
I have my sources, Picard. What sources? Look, that's not important.
That's right.
I had to act. Why? I love that scene between Picard and Maxwell. Anyway,
Yeah.
getting distracted.
That's all right. So now we're on to our third story, the shortest story of the bunch.
The one
Just
pager.
called Meanwhile.
Yeah, I mean this one doesn't do a lot for me. I get what it is. It's just what Scotty and Keynes are doing right before Star Trek One,
Right.
of the JJ Star Trek.
Yes. Yeah, precisely. They're just hanging around.
But I don't think it added a lot, really. I mean,
no, it's just a one page of silly, you know.
Yeah.
And there's another one in here that I feel similarly about.
Yeah, me too.
But then we turn around and we end up in the
this one's. I love this one.
This one's really
Written
lovely.
by
written by Will Wheaton.
One Will Wheaton.
Art by Joe Eisma. Colors by DC Alonso. Beautiful art style. It feels the art.
Yep.
If you take a look at it, feels kind of rotoscoped. You know. It's got a real painting quality to it in some ways.
Yeah.
I really love the art style. And the story is narrated by Wesley, who, for some reason, has decided to come visit Jean-Luc Picard. He makes the point.
This is taking place during the last episode of Picard season 2.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. Looks like it. Yeah.
Which we get confirmation of on the last panel of this story, but spoiler alert.
Yeah. So it says here, my body has existed for 50 orbits of Earth's sun. I look like an average human from the late 24th century, but I have been everywhere. I have seen everything. I have saved galaxies. I have made a difference, but it comes with a cost. So Wesley's meditating here in some ways about the 30 years he's spent not seeing his mother, his friends, his mentors, spent being a traveler.
But doesn't regret it. He's just
but he does
questioning whether he would wish it on somebody else.
Because
that's kind of what his conundrum is here, in a way, which we'll get to. He's coming to Picard for advice on a decision he has to make. He's not going to tell Picard what that is. He just needs to he wants to be Picard to make him confident in his own decision making, essentially.
Yes. And his consciousness has changed considerably, right? When Picard mentions it's 30 years, a bit longer since they've seen each other, he says it's been 30 years for you. Wow, that's a long time for humans, isn't it? He really he's spent eons essentially moving about as a traveler. I think he may even say that somewhere, but. Ultimately, his timeline is still that he's basically a 50-year-old man. Right?
I like Picard's response to that.
What's that? Oh, a blink of an eye for some, more than a lifetime for others. Yeah.
Yep, 30 years. It's all on your perspective, man. That's
for sure.
And he's commenting on himself, too, because he's... In Picard Season 2, the kind of theme of the season is time. And this carries along right with that, which is very nice. It fits in there nicely. This could have been a scene in that last episode. And probably I would have liked it if it had been. It would have made that the final moment that in this last panel refers to make a lot more sense, I think. Will Wheaton does some good writing here. He really builds out the world of the travelers and the experience of the travelers and stuff, too.
Yeah. There's some they that are closer than he thinks. He thinks it's risky enough already. So he brings Picard into a sort of interstitial space where there won't be any time that intervenes and there won't be sort of any memory of it afterwards. As they talk, he's really asking Picard how to make a critical choice. He explains that the tapestry of reality is fragile in the way that the travelers work with it. And if he doesn't make the right choice, or if the choice doesn't go the right way, everything could come apart. And comes to Picard because Picard's made choices that affected entire civilizations, from the Mintakan to the Borg, to the Romulans, right?
Yeah.
And Picard, with his usual aplomb, which he's recovered in this instance, says that is the defining question for every captain. We do not ever make choices alone. We consult our staff. There is only the courage and wisdom to make the choice without regret. But that courage and wisdom does not simply happen. It's earned over a lifetime, given to us in small doses by those closest to it when we don't even realize it. It's a beautiful concatenation of things and leads to this lovely, lovely spread page.
Oh yeah,
Where
the different things
Wesley,
he's learned from
yeah,
his different
from
friends.
the members of the crew on the Enterprise. Some really lovely moments that I hadn't even remembered very much, but are really gorgeous. And now he realizes that he's always been trying. He'd often been trying to be somebody, Picard or Riker or someone.
His father.
His moments. But what he needs to do is be himself and make the choice he knows he alone will make.
Yeah.
And in the end, we come to this final panel here.
Yeah. Oh, a little higher there, Dave.
Oh, thank you. It's hard to see through.
Yep.
Oh, there we go.
There we go. So that's him approaching. Oh God, what was her name?
Oh, I've lost it now. Well, whatever her face, Picard, isn't it? No,
yeah. No, it's one of the two data clone.
That's right. Yeah.
There was Dodge, and what was the other one?
Shoji.
Soji, yeah, that's Soji. Okay, very good.
Yeah.
So yeah, that which he does in the second episode, and he offers to make her a traveler, or not second episode, end of season 2. And they don't really explain why that is or anything in the show, so it's nice to have this bit that sort of fills that out a little, which doesn't really explain why he chose Soji, but just that it's very important that he either do or don't.
Yes.
It's like realities could end if I mess up this decision. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
And you have to wonder if the traveler felt the same thing about Wesley. It's just like, I have to make a decision about this boy one way or the other, or bad things.
I love it that they harken back in this moment, and Picard actually tells him what the traveler told him all those years ago, because that'd be nearly 40 years ago at that point.
Yeah. Which Wesley didn't know. Yeah.
And he's never known it until that moment.
But I think the more important thing Picard says to him is that I knew you were exceptional and special long before that. Like
yes.
When you first walked on my bridge and I said, "Get off this boy off my bridge."
Yeah. Since I always knew you were special.
Yeah. It's nice, man.
Yeah, it's a lovely moment. And now we have just like a piece of. I frankly do not really understand the story that's coming up. But
me neither, actually.
It's called Starfleeter.
And I actually have an issue with it as well. I think this
is written by Mark Johnson, art by Megan Levins, colors by Rhonda Patterson.
Mike Johnson, who writes the majority of Star Trek comics these days. He does all the J.J. Abrams universe comics and everything. So prolific Star Trek writer.
And this is about, of course, Kayla Detmer, the Starfleeter, she calls herself. Yeah.
Sam says we should do a pod episode on Star Trek moments that would not be PC today.
Season 1 of TNG in general.
Yeah, we would just talk about what's that friggin' episode?
Oh, Code of Honor. Oh my god.
Yeah, we could just you know what? Honestly, Sam, that's a good idea for Locutors of Trek season 2.
Yeah.
Thematic.
We just do Star Trek
we just do themes, and that'd be a good theme.
Right.
Next one being the failures of Star Trek, which, you know what? Maybe fits into that, actually.
Yeah.
Maybe that fits right into our next episode. Sam,
the lovely thing about Trek is that Trek swings a lot, takes a lot of swings, and there are definitely some misses in there,
Yeah.
Some of them have weird lizards at the end.
We have practiced the abduction in accordance to our culture.
Right. So here we are. This is a very strange story because Discovery has been made into a kind of a bumper car sort of a thing, as you can see, as has a Klingon, where am I? Cleave ship been turned into a weird kind of a bumper car thing.
Or talk about the Paradise Syndrome, he says.
Pardon me?
Or Sam says we could talk about the Paradise Syndrome.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, also would not fly. Yeah. So Detmer decides to look around and survey and finds a pot full of food she thinks looks delicious. At which point, a very unhappy looking L comes around the corner. She's mad and ends up challenging her to trial by Gach, which I think is a fun reference back to Riker's time on a Klingon ship, maybe. Because they do love their jokes about Gach. And Lorel laughs, "Ha, I can hear the pitiful wails of your fragile human innards." And then there's a giant burp.
My thing about this one is the other stories in this feel like they could fit right into the world.
Yes.
This one doesn't. It's very silly.
Yes.
The characters aren't acting like themselves. Detmer, I'm not the biggest Discovery fan, admittedly, but from what I've seen, Detmer does not act anything like this Detmer. She's not silly, goofy. She's like quite, serious and kind of reserved.
Yeah.
In comparison.
And Lorel would have gotten her to put the Gach in her mouth and then stabbed her while she had the fork in her face, right? Like, yeah. The thing I found about it is that it honestly, it gave me the same feeling that, like, when my son was wee tiny, he used to like to watch, what was it called? Marvel Superhero Squad or whatever it was.
Oh, yes.
Where everybody has like giant feet and they're kind of blocky. Yeah. And it's made for younger children. And that's kind of what this story felt like.
Yeah.
And in that sense, it stuck out from the rest of the stories as an odd choice for inclusion in here. And again, as you say, the visual changes in the ship, the other pieces didn't really make a whole lot of sense. Yeah.
Like, where are they even? Like, I don't know.
There's the anomaly, and they're on some random planet. But yeah, it seemed very, very disconnected.
Yeah.
I was confused by it.
And if it is, as you say, meant for a younger audience, it again is out of place because these other stories aren't.
Yeah, they're really
clearly written for people who are probably old like us and have seen all the episodes it's referencing, But I don't know.
Yeah, I thought it was a very strange choice for inclusion.
Didn't do it for me. I didn't really enjoy it. I was distracted by everything. I was just like, this is weird. This is weird. So
I was just like, what is happening this whole time?
Like Detmer's acting more like Tilly. Like I feel like it was supposed to be Tilly or something, but
yeah, they could have definitely put Tilly on that story and it would have made way more sense. Can I just say once again how much I enjoy Tilly as a character? She's just great fun.
Oh, sure.
Oh, man. Now, the next story along here is a beautiful one. The art, again, this is our style I really enjoy. Honestly, the style kind of reminds me of classic Johnny Quest comics, which are ones that I collected as a kid and just absolutely loved.
Oh, yeah.
So here we go.
A nice little remembrance.
And a beautiful, page for a remembrance of Nichelle Nichols. Rest in peace, Ad Astra. But yeah, this is called A Perfect System. This story is, whoops, I'm going the wrong direction. Written by Jackson Lansing and Colin Kelly, art by Ramon Rosanas, colors by Lee Loffridge, it looks like. Begins with Gary Mitchell saying, "Once I was the kind of man who had friends. We stood together and plunged into the unknown. We lived for an ideal. We died for a cause. Once I was a man. Now Gary Mitchell builds solar systems."
Now Gary Mitchell's a god, you could say.
Yeah. So we're picking up with, of course, the story of Gary Mitchell from the original series. He He refers again to IDIC. Says there's a Vulcan ideology, infinite diversity, infinite combinations, hell of a system. In practice, the plurality can be deafening. For each moment, an opposite exists infinitely. And yet, somehow, this is not annihilation.
Mhm.
We get a real cosmic feel, almost like he's. I got a feeling almost of Gumtooth out there somewhere, you know?
Mhm.
He has that
Tin Man.
solitary feeling again, exactly. This
Mhm.
great page of him beholding all of this with the sort of gosh, I'm getting all turned around here. There we go.
Perhaps he just needs a Tam Albrin.
That's right. He just needs a Tam.
Mhm.
Um, he's looking at this, saying that he's preparing a place for them so that when they become as I have become, it won't be one who ascends, it'll be all.
Interesting.
One day their journey to the stars will bring them to where I stand now. I'll have a home waiting for them.
Now, is he talking about humanity? He's
It's
building
a
a home
good
for
question. It's
humanity
certainly,
to ascend, like the guy does and sees the back of the koala in
yeah,
Lower Decks.
yeah. I mean, I could see that being because this is clearly a very Starfleet image, and that's he's talking about their crusade, right?
Oh yeah.
But then this last page, or these last 2 pages, I find uh, an interesting, or 3 pages, I guess, or an interesting set of connections.
I have a lot to say about that, but go ahead.
So here we come. We see Gary's body beginning to come apart for some
Mhm.
reason. There's a red light that looks like it's either tearing him apart or being emitted by him. I'm not sure.
Little
Uh,
higher. There
but
you have it.
so he sees his body begin to come to pieces, and he
It-
turns as it's coming apart. And interesting, he says, after all, the world they want to build is a place for everyone and anything, except,
Mhm.
of course, those who want everything to be nothing, to
Okay,
mean
yeah.
nothing. It
Mhm.
has no place for you. And
He's
then
referring
this,
to someone very specific there.
and who is that?
We don't know yet, but get to the end there and I'll explain myself.
And so here we have it, to be continued.
Yes, there. Okay, so this whole story is a setup for the Star Trek #1 comic that is about to come out, and I will be reviewing on the Trekle Trunk here because I'm very excited about it. The lead character in Star Trek #1, this ongoing series, is none other than a freshly returned from the Celestial Temple, Benjamin Sisko.
Oh, you are kidding me.
I am not kidding you, and he's assembled a team. Now this,
So this is the
now this
image that's
is
the
this.
story.
Yeah, it's after Deep Space Nine, but
Hmm?
before Nemesis.
This fella
That's
here.
Yes, that's his team.
God
Data,
damn it.
Beverly Crusher.
Oh my goodness. Data, Beverly
Yes.
Crusher, an
And
Andorian,
Cisco.
and another
Yep.
dude.
Yeah.
Wow.
And he's been sent back from the Celestial Temple because there's some sort of entity, which is the one Gary Mitchell's referring to very specifically, that is out there destroying all the gods. Almost a Gore the God Butcher, if you
Oh,
will.
interesting.
So all godlike beings, the Gary Mitchells, the Trelanes, Qs,
Mhm.
probably,
Right.
the Telosians or whatever.
Right. And so what we're seeing here in that sense, I took it as sort of more widely a statement ultimately against nihilism, against that way of looking at things, which does draw everything down into a kind of nothing, into a meaninglessness, right?
Cousin Jeff makes the very, very salient point that Cisco has planets yet to torpedo. Of course, he's coming back from the temple. The job
right.
of the villain is never done.
But yeah, I mean, I think
And they chose
ultimately,
him to go after the guy destroying gods for a reason.
yeah. But I think that argument against nihilism is something that Cisco's well connected to, right? I mean, in a certain sense, the whole problem with Ducat is that Ducat will make anything mean anything, right? He's just a sort of sophistical hole of meaninglessness. Ultimately, he tries to fill that with all sorts of things, whereas Cisco
With talk.
is almost overwhelmed with meaning a lot of the time, and we see that increasingly in the last episodes of the series, where
Mm.
the what's coming over him in these sort of prophetic waves are almost too much for him to handle a lot of the time. Right? They could burn him out.
You live long enough to see you become the villain.
Ooh,
Mm-hmm.
indeed.
Indeed.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, and I guess the book. So again, nice build up for Star Trek #1 that's coming out. I'm really looking forward to that series. I mean, I wouldn't have never dreamed of a team of Cisco, Data, and Beverly, to be honest with you, and I love it.
Oh, it's a great idea. Now that is the last story in that issue. There is some beautiful other art, shows some variant covers and things. Let me find my way back to there. Let's see some of this. So here are some of the variant covers.
The one we have here.
That's what we got here. And then we've got, I like this one a lot. This is sort of two pages.
Oh, yeah. Nice double cover. Yeah. Hold all of these a little higher. That's all.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I will rely on your
beauty.
Direction.
Perfect. That's where you want it. Oh, what a nice Spock image in the background.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah.
Now, speaking of a nice Spock image, we come around to a different sort of a Spock.
Oh, the many incarnations of Spock.
Yeah, very exactly. Cool. Right. And then again, that same art style from the more confusing story, but I do like the image.
Yeah, that's very cool. They could have told a silly story that just made more sense, like with silly characters, but they chose Detmer.
Yeah, exactly.
Laurel. Right? I don't know.
This thing is, I like that a lot. The bird
very
in
nice.
The middle is a lovely piece.
Very cool.
And then we've got just another sort of look more like a draft colored image or something like that.
Cousin Jeff asks, how many times will Data and Troy be like, no, you can't do this? And Cisco is just fighting his way to the tactical console like he's in the Beatles. Well, I don't think Troy's going to be there. You're thinking Beverly, I think, Jeff.
That's awesome.
But good point. They're not used to Cisco, that's for sure. Data's going to be shocked. Beverly can be a little Cisco herself, quite frankly.
Yeah, but, I can see that. But, yeah.
Look, she was going to burn that planet of like sex hippies to the ground.
Oh, that's true.
To save Wesley. Yeah,
that's true. Oh, space hippies.
Yeah.
Speaking of space hippies.
Yeah. Let's move on to
the inaugural issue of
IDW's Lower Decks #1, written by one of my favorite comic book writers, the writer of one of my favorite heroes, the unbeatable Squirrel Girl.
Oh, Ryan North.
Yeah.
Indeed. Art by Chris Fenolio and letters designed by Joanna Natali.
Mm-hmm.
So we open up with a beautiful. This is really essentially just an episode in comic book form. I would love to
100%. And
honestly, great fun.
It's only half the issue. I feel like we're going to get every 2 issues. We'll get the equivalent of a Lower Decks episode because this one ends with a to be continued and feels like it's half the episode. Feels like it's like halfway through or even close to the end of like the
which is amazing that you think like this entire comic book is essentially 11 minutes of screen time, right?
Yeah.
That blows my mind. They tell
that feels about right.
Stories.
But they do. It takes longer to read because in typical Ryan North style, on every page or so he has notes to the like he does that.
Silliest notes I've ever read.
He does that all through Squirrel Girl too. Like at the bottom of every Squirrel Girl page, there they are. Like this, just print here.
Just random stuff he's talking about.
Always talking to the reader, Ryan North.
There's a classic old Nova Scotian free newspaper here in Halifax called The Coast that used to have that running line on the bottom as well. I don't know if they still do it, but it warmed the cockles of my Nova Scotian heart to see it on the bottom of these pages. That's for sure.
Yeah. And another quick plug for Ryan North.
Oh, okay.
Romeo and Juliet, choose your own adventure.
Or Juliet.
Yeah, choose your own adventure.
Nice.
Yeah. Ryan North, he's a funny guy, man. Cool. Very cool guy.
Right on.
He signed this for me and told me to choose my own adventure. Do it, he says.
We open up on a scene of battle. Direct hit. Those Herberts aren't messing around, and we see that what we're looking at is in fact space hippies.
Space hippies.
Indeed. Or, as Ryan North conveniently reminds us on another page here, Carol, Starfleet is well aware that the Catalan renegades have been described as space hippies, or as we call them here in space, regular hippies. It's like, what is French toast called in France?
Yeah.
So here we go. They point out helpfully that you can always tell by the design aesthetic and their helpful presence that is a Federation ship which has arrived. The USS Cerritos comes to the rescue, and apparently Mangrove also thinks the Cerritos are Herberts.
It's true.
We have a beautiful sort of run of jokes about the massive difference in technological levels between the Catullans, their enemies here, and the Federation, in that their shields actually end up charging up because of getting shot by these guys at one point.
Which is a funny little Ryan North's note to the reader.
Oh, yes. Captain Engineering reports that channeling any weapon fire directly into our power grid has finally worked out perfectly, therefore justifying years of exploding consoles. And rocks falling from the ceiling.
God. Just like in Squirrel Girl, some of those notes are funnier than the actual dialogue, which is still funny. Like Ryan North, I almost look. I was so excited when I got that. I didn't notice that till I got home and started reading it and opened it up, and I was like, Ryan North. Oh my God.
No, I really like the design of the Citarans here.
Me too.
They're super creepy looking.
Yeah.
And they look like they would be traditional, like enemy style species creatures, but they have a legitimate grievance. Like these guys are being really rude to us.
They call them Herberts.
Right, the fools called us Herberts.
Which I assure you, we are not.
That's right.
Definitely not Herberts. Herbert. If you'd like to see me and Dave as space hippies, or hear us as space hippies, tune into Star Trek Radio Theater tomorrow. No.
Indeed. Yeah, tomorrow.
Yes. Yeah, tomorrow night. Yeah.
So the Cerritos takes out their weapons with 1% power, which will allow them to be repaired by the next day. Captain Freeman, Captain Mariner.
No, it's Captain Freeman.
That's Freeman. Makes the point that they do not consider them Herberts. The Federation knows that they are in no way Herberts. And he says, well, good, because we're not.
No Herbertations in that species.
That's right. And stop calling everyone Herberts. Nobody likes that.
No, but I can just hear Carol's voice. Carol Freeman's
Nobody likes that.
And stop calling them Herberts. Nobody likes that.
Oh,
it's just so funny.
Now the theme running through this, that they need 1% power and all this sort of stuff because they're really weak, turns on the Cerritos, as things tend to do. Funny you should mention technology, Admiral Chapman says to her. I'm sending you out to see the Kvanti.
Which she had never heard of before, but they were
Indeed,
recently
it's an unusual edge case of the Prime Directive. Yeah. So she explains it here. While the Prime Directive forbids all contact until a civilization achieves warp travel, the Kvanti focused on transport unusually late in their development. As a result, their civilization is even more advanced than the Federation in some areas. This could be a very beneficial relationship for both parties, so I'm pleased the Federation has seen fit to assign this mission to the Cerritos. And it means that they're on a long but uneventful voyage, which means they have an opportunity to get some
fun. A little
It's
Dickie Hill time.
Story. That's right. So we have a beginning here with Boimler indulging his Dixon Hill fanboying. Gotta love it.
His Picard fanboying. Mariner even says at one point, there are other captains in Starfleet.
Captain Smith with the USS Quietly Competent is waiting for his moment in the sun. Boimler.
Quietly Competent.
Tandy tells us a little bit about Orion stories. She says, so did we miss the heist? He says, oh no, there's no heist in this one, just murders. Oh, and some light betrayal. Orion stories always start with a heist. Even the fairy tales? Especially the fairy tales, or as we call them, fairy heists.
Fairy heists. Love it. I love all the Orion backstory you get from Tandy. It's all hilarious.
So
the mistress of the winter, whatever.
Oh, that's right. Mariner doesn't like it. Whatever Boimler likes, she thinks is boring and stupid.
Yeah, she says this is how old people have fun.
Yeah, so she's going to go and do something more fun. Program Mariner Enterprise 1. She takes them through many eras of the Enterprise before they decide on maybe something a little different. Come on, he's the original detective. Dixon's riffing on. She takes him to Victorian Britain, which for Star Trek fans can only mean one thing. Sherlock Holmes.
Moriarty.
James Moriarty. Neat, says Tendy, of course. Is he someone I should know? Or so they give us a little backstory on Moriarty, helpfully, gets trapped in the thing. And it is important
resides
to
on
remember
Picard's shelf.
Yes, Starfleet Regulation 320-730-A, subparagraph 2, clearly states that while Starfleet captains having a knickknack shelf isn't mandatory, if they choose to have one, it must have at least one little ship.
Little ship. Which is a great nod to the episode, One Little Ship.
That is true. That's a wonderful. Oh my gosh, I had forgotten that episode until just now. That's great.
The nods are so on point in Lower Decks in general, but Ryan North is really doing a good job.
Oh yeah. So they decide that they're not going to use Moriarty because that's obviously too dangerous.
Yeah.
And Mariner decides on somebody a little different.
Yeah.
Because
yeah,
as Ryan helpfully points out, Dracula is public domain, so you can stick that thing in anything.
And why wouldn't you? You should. He's like,
well,
there's literally no reason not to. He said,
there's no downsides.
Dracula should be in every story. Why not?
Now, meanwhile, they're approaching the atmosphere of Kvanti. Kvanti's atmosphere is highly ionized and charged. It disallows transporting and certain kinds of communications, I think. So they're going to have to get pretty close and send down a shuttlecraft by the looks of it. And at that moment, they're explaining, Dracula's a vampire guy. Computer can't make him sentient because Mariner starts asking. After the Moriarty incident, the computers are locked out of being able to do that. So, eventually, they start telling it to do weirder and weirder things with this. Tendy says, computer, make a Dracula capable of defeating 100 Ultra Datas.
Ultra Datas being Datas that can use at least 3 contractions.
Yes. His precise capabilities remain a mystery, but he's definitely mastered several contractions at me. Yeah. And so eventually they even get Boimler in on it, and he says, okay, I admitted it's safe, but that still doesn't mean you should go around saying things like, hey, computer, how's about a sentient Dracula who could outwit the best android ever? Thanks. And then
computer goes processing.
We have an energy surge, which, as we all know, is bad for holodecks.
Bad. Very bad for holodecks.
And the computer just starts saying processing.
They're freaking out.
The ship's okay. Rutherford and Billups are doing fine up there. But Dracula comes back saying, not just I want to suck your blood, but I want to suck your blood, and then to escape this holodeck and take over the Cerritos, just like Moriarty did with Enterprise. He leaps upon them menacingly. Somewhere Mark Ryan.Hagen begins to script another source book for Vampire the Masquerade.
They also take a real shot at the crew of Picard's Enterprise with their solution to this whole thing.
So we continue the interesting season 2 theme of Ransom being Mariner's
direct
supervisor,
superior. Yeah.
So they're in an argument here. He's telling her, "You've really messed this up. This is basically your fault. You're too reckless. You shouldn't have been pushing them to do this. What are you going to do?" And she says, "We'll just turn them off. We'll just delete it." She says, "You can't do that. It might be sentient."
Yeah.
That's a very real violation of his simulated bodily autonomy, which I thought was a joke.
She even says you can't change him. You can't alter the program. You can't do anything.
You can't change what his mind is like. And of course, he's doing Ransom is doing all of this while seated on an exercise ball so he can do crunches. As would be clearly Ransom's plan.
The beach is that way.
Crunches. So they get that all set. He says, you're basically going to shut down the thing for now.
Yeah.
And
But the reason Mariner was able to go and have a conversation with Ransom in the first place is because she pauses him.
oh, that's right. She pauses the holodeck.
Pauses Dracula, which is the shot I think at TNG because they never actually thought of that.
No,
they never tried to
think...
pause Moriarty. They're just like trying to get out of the holodeck or like trying to delete the program. It's like just pause him for a minute, you know?
Yeah, just wait. I thought it was a novel way of trying to at least delay the problem. So now we're heading down to the planet. Freeman's excited about going on an away mission. It seems safe enough that there's no reason to stop her from going.
Yeah.
She takes Shax and T'Ana and they head down to the planet. Except the planet is not what they're expecting.
No. Not a technological haven there.
Yeah, no technological haven. But there is a surprisingly large group of people heading for them fairly quickly. So we come back to Dracula. Yep. We're shutting down the holodeck. She's putting him in secure storage. All seems fine. Up on the bridge, they're trying to figure out what exactly is going on this planet, why it's not quite correct.
Yep.
So they say they're about as far as developing warp technology as you can get, Jack. You've not only broken the Prime Directive, we've shattered it, and Starfleet is going to have our head. So something has gone terribly wrong, and then at the last moment, what happens? Drak's back.
Drak is back. He was just, like Moriarty did the same thing. He acted as if he was gone and then just pops back, right?
It is Vlad.
Vlad.
Yep. So we get some
to
great
be continued.
art after this. To be continued. We get a nice picture, potentially.
Yeah, maybe a spoiler because that's the cover of issue 2 there.
Yeah. I like this one here a lot.
Let me make that.
Very much reminds me of the first moment of the first episode where she nearly cuts his leg off.
Yeah,
I think it's great. His
the art looks just like the show too.
Oh, very much. Now this one I really loved.
Him playing the
oh yeah, it's awesome.
Very cool. Yeah. What are those in the background of that image?
These guys here? Yeah. I wonder. Look at them. I wonder if they kind of look like the
It's those guys. Yeah.
Maybe it's the Sitarans with it is the Sitarans.
Those Herberts.
Yeah. Those Herberts.
Herberts.
And then we have Cavanti in World of Tomorrow. And then Badgie. Badgie showing us
which
there are callbacks to these Star Trek moments in this issue. So they tell you where the callbacks are, which is fun.
Yeah, very cool.
There's a loading error, so you have to find some differences. And then, oh my gosh, I like this ad for Warp 5 Nachos.
Oh, yeah. Warp 5 Nachos. Awesome. Get them in a replicator near you.
So those are the issues.
Yeah.
Really great fun. I thought that could make a perfectly good episode of Lower Decks. That would be a great episode of Lower Decks.
Oh, yeah. I can't wait to see the second half of it. I think a lot of these Lower Decks comics are going to be, not only do they feel just like Lower Decks, I think they're going to be better than a lot of episodes, some episodes, just because I think Ryan North is writing them, and I have great confidence in his writing. He should be writing.
He's definitely got the humor down pat.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to see where this series goes. I suggest everybody read it. Slot it right into the old headcanon. It fits right into the show perfectly thus far. And certainly join us on the next edition of the Trekle Trunk, where we will be reviewing unless we do a game or play with some toys first, but where we'll be reviewing Lower Decks number 2, and we'll also bring in, because I believe it comes out next month, or perhaps even the end of this month, Star Trek number 1.
Nice.
So we'll pick up on the Cisco story as well. So really looking forward to that. I hope you enjoyed us here in our new home at Live Long and Podcast. We've been assimilated by the Borg, but Resistance, you could call us much like our logo. We're kind of like the Deep Space Nine of Live Long and Podcast. Deep.
The locutors of the whole
sophisticated,
thing. It's true.
Humble.
Yeah. A lot of people there.
Yeah.
Just like Deep Space Nine.
Yeah, exactly. So So,
Yeah, having
my
added
co-
our technological and biological distinctiveness to their own, I think it'll be a good thing.
yeah. And
Yeah.
speaking of which, check out the other stuff going on over at Live Long and Podcast.
Of
What's going
course.
on? What day is it? Oh, the Radio Theater. Radio Theater tomorrow.
Yeah.
Check that out.
Tomorrow.
We're gonna sing for you all and play instruments.
Look out.
We'll bring a tear to your eye. And then on Sunday, I host the all musical edition of Trivia Debates.
Nice.
And that'll be fun too. I'll probably play some music on that too, because why wouldn't I? It's music edition. And I like to have the excuse to do so. And also check out Super Mater Brothers. They'll be reviewing Big Brother. I think that's coming to an end. I don't watch that, but I'm pretty sure it's coming
One
to an
can
end
only
that
hope.
season. Yeah, well, not forever. Yeah, we're not that lucky.
It's like those signs you see on the road that just says construction ends. It's just like, oh man, you can hope.
Sam asked the question, are we going to permanently stay on Live Long and Podcast? And I would say that depends on how they treat us, Sam.
It's true. Yeah. The alliance is strong for now.
Yeah, it's a very strong alliance. I think we found a new home here.
Yeah.
It's just there's a ton of Trek content. We're going to overwhelm the internets with our Trekkiness.
That's right.
Yeah. And also check out
hard.
my other podcast, check out X-Rated. We're going to have Marvel Comics artist David Cutler join us on Tuesday for the episode Cold Comfort. And also check out my co-host on that show's podcast, Graphic Histories. He's on break right now, but there's a great back catalog you should go check out. He should have Ryan North on that show. I'm going to talk to him about that.
That's great.
Yeah, Ryan North's cool, man. Yeah, I guess that's it.
All right, in that case.
Yeah.
End transmission.
End transmission.